Olá, sejam todos e todos muito bem-vindos. Hoje nós promovemos uma conversa muito especial, porque ela demonstra a importância e a riqueza do intercâmbio cultural entre o Brasil e o Japão. JHSP Live, que acompanharemos a seguir, nos dá a oportunidade de conhecer mais sobre a produção teatral Hell Says No, Lampião no Inferno, na tradução para o português, com a participação de importantes convidados, como a própria diretora da peça, Soraya Umewaka, o mestre No Naohiko Umewaka, que é ator protagonista, mediação será da Angela Mayumi Nagai, grande especialista do teatro No, e a nossa diretora cultural, Natasha Barzaghi Guenen. Lampião no Inferno é uma reinterpretação por Umewaka-san da obra literária A Chegada de Lampião no Inferno, José Pacheco, importante autor do cordel brasileiro. É uma ousada e admirável fusão de elementos da literatura do cordel e do teatro No, que são tão característicos e emblemáticos das culturas brasileira e japonesa. Foi apresentado no Japão em novembro, marcando a ponte olímpica do Rio a Tóquio. Esse espetáculo foi concebido pela Embaixada do Brasil em Tóquio, em parceria com a direção
Rio to Tokyo. The play was devised by Brazilian Embassy in Tokyo in a partnership with Soraya Umewaka as an innovative strategy to take the Brazilian culture to the Japanese audience by mixing it with Japanese cultural expressions, martial arts, and multimedia technology. I'd like to stress that it is an honor and a pleasure to sponsor the premiere of Hell Says No in Brazil, as well as today's online webinar, which was only possible due to the partnership with the Brazilian Embassy in Tokyo. In 2018, the embassy showcased the exhibition Do, The Path to Virtue, conceived by Japan House São Paulo, and now we are presenting this play to the Brazilian audience. We are very happy with another joint initiative. I would like to give special thanks to the Brazilian Embassy in Tokyo, to Soraya Umewaka, to Naohiko Umewaka, to Angela Mayumi Nagai, to Natasha Barzaghi Guinen, and to you all who are watching us tonight. I wish you all a good event. Thank you.
Boa noite.
Good evening.
Hoje a gente tem o prazer de realizar uma
Today
conversa
we
inédita na
have the
Japan House São
pleasure
Paulo sobre o
of
teatro No,
hosting a
esse
very
teatro
interesting
tradicional
conversation
japonês
about the
que
No
combina
Theater,
elementos de dança,
traditional
música, canto,
Japanese theater
poesia
that
e um
combines
gestual muito único.
music, dance, poetry,
Reconhecido pela sua
and
estética
singular
própria, pelo
gestures.
uso de
Known by
máscaras
its
por
own
alguns dos
aesthetic, by the
atores,
use
é
of
uma
masks by
manifestação
some of the
extremamente
actors,
pujante.
this is a very powerful
Hell Says No,
manifestation.
ou Lampião
Hell
no
Says
Inferno,
No,
na
or
tradução para o
Lampião no
português,
Inferno, in its
reúne dois
translation
mundos
into
distintos,
Portuguese, combines
o
two
teatro
different
no
worlds,
japonês
the
e a nossa
Japanese
literatura de
No
cordel
theater
brasileira,
and the
gênero
Brazilian
literário
Cordel
popular típico da
literature,
região nordeste do
a
país, que dá
genre
grande
from the
ênfase ao
northeast of the
ritmo e à
country
oralidade.
that focuses on
Essa
rhythm
iniciativa
and oral
comprova a
expression.
importância da
This
fusão
initiative
artística para
proves the
promover a troca
importance of
cultural
artistic
entre o
fusion
Japão e o
to
Brasil,
promote
e o
a
potencial
cultural
das artes
exchange
para
between
ampliar e
Japan and
fortalecer essa
Brazil,
relação bilateral.
and the power of
Missão que é
arts to
compartilhada entre a
strengthen
Japan
this
House São Paulo e a
bilateral
Embaixada do Brasil em Tóquio.
exchange because it's shared
Nesse
between the
sentido,
Brazilian
gostaria de
Embassy in
agradecer mais
Tokyo
uma
and
vez a
Japan House.
preciosa e já
Once again,
estabelecida
I would like
colaboração,
to thank
em
the
especial o
precious
embaixador Eduardo
collaboration
Saboia e o
and
adjunto cultural
especially
Silvio
Eduardo
Andrade.
Jaboya and the coach
Outro elemento crucial
Andrade,
dessa
the
peça
cultural
é a
attaché.
harmonia costurada
This
entre o
play also
tradicional e o
has a very
contemporâneo, um
harmonic
aspecto que é
combination
amplamente
between
destacado na
the
programação cultural da Japan House
contemporary
São Paulo.
and also the
A conversa
traditional
de hoje vai ser
aspects.
realizada pela Soraya Umewaka,
Today,
diretora
our
do Lampião no
conversation
Inferno,
will involve
cineasta,
Soraya
atriz,
Umewaka,
dramaturga e professora.
playwright and
Naohiko Umewaka, mestre
professor
no,
and
ator principal do
play
espetáculo e membro de
director,
uma família com
and
mais de
also
400 anos de tradição no No,
Umewaka
será a mediação da
Sensei, who's
Angela
a
Mayumi
member of a
Nagai,
traditional
doutora em artes
family.
pela
It will be
Unicamp, que
mediated
foi
by
bolsista da Japan
Angela
Foundation,
Nagai,
que é
who
fundadora
is an
do
expert
Brasil
in No
International
Theater
No
and is
Institute.
the founder
Vou
in
passar a palavra
Brazil of
para a
the
Angela, que
International
vai apresentar
No
nossos
Theater
convidados
Foundation.
ilustres de
Now
hoje
I will
e que vai
turn to
iniciar essa
Angela,
conversa.
who will
Gostaria
introduce
de lembrar
our
ao
guests
público
and start our
que as
conversation.
perguntas
I
são
would like
muito
to remind our
bem-vindas e a gente
audience
vai ter
that
tempo
we
destacado
hope
para
that you
isso,
ask
depois do fim
questions
da
because
conversa.
we will address
Obrigada.
questions in the end of our discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Natasha. Good evening to Brazil. Ohayo gozaimasu to the Japanese audience. I would like to thank the Japan House and the Brazilian Embassy in Tokyo for this great honor to speak with such prominent artists who gave us this beautiful, this bold, this anthropophagic.
Esse tipo de peça inspiradora, antropofágica, muito inovadora. Isso para os brasileiros é um verdadeiro presente. Muito obrigada. Eu gostaria de apresentar os nossos artistas. Soraya Umewaka, que é de descendência japonesa e libanesa, é uma cineasta que já ganhou muitos prêmios. Ela já estreou espetáculos começou quando tinha 3 anos.
Relationship to Brazil because she lived here in 2006 in Rio de Janeiro for 6 months, and there she directed and filmed a documentary called Eu Sou Feliz, I'm Happy, featuring portraits and individuals such as police officers, dancers, and graffiti artists. This experience in Brazil, combined with her panoramic and at the same time very sensitive view of cultures and people, culminated in the production of the multimedia Hell Says No. Naohiko Umewaka is a Japanese Noh master, a philosopher, a playwright, choreographer, director, composer, and teacher. He received his PhD in 1995 from the University of London and is currently a professor at Shizuoka University of Art and Culture. Umewaka Sensei is internationally known for his strong roots in Noh and for being at the same time a revolutionary artist. He has created innovative contemporary plays with a deep knowledge of the physical, metaphysical, and internal choreography of Noh. So for decades, Umewaka Sensei works with different cultures and generations, transmitting his contemporary vision and power of Noh. So I'd like to invite Soraya Umewaka to tell us about the project, about the creation process of Hell Says No, Lampião no Inferno. And I believe the Brazilian audience is very much curious to know how this outstanding idea was born. Please, Soraya.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Soraya. I'm the director of Hell Says No. I want to thank everyone for tuning in today as well as yesterday. Thank you, Angela, Natasha, the Japan House, and the Brazilian Embassy of Japan for giving me and my father this virtual stage to present Hell Says No. So Hell Says No took place at the Panasonic Center in Tokyo in 2019, November. So this was pre-COVID days. Tickets were sold out. We had 1,000 people come to the show across 2 days. And the response was overwhelmingly positive. And this was a very special production for all of us. Now, before going into the details of Hell Says No, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. So this is me with my father. My father taught me Noh theater from a young age. So I performed at the National Noh Theater at the age of 3. And I remember the Noh theater training to be quite harsh. But as an adult, I have a deep appreciation for Noh theater. So what is Noh theater? It's the oldest theater still performed today. There are different categories of Noh theater: God, warrior, women, madness, demon plays. And so some of the stories would include, for example, a child being kidnapped by a human trafficker, or a sea creature with red hair that loves sake, or a warrior ghost that gets to relive the moment he was killed in battle. The storylines are inspired by literature from the 12th century onwards. And Noh theater is very rich in allusions, symbols, metaphors, such as I was shot and killed and transformed as a dewdrop on a grass. And I would say that the movements are very stylized in nature. The movements are very minimalist in nature. And my father he often says, do not produce wasted motion. Do not produce wasted motion, as in do not move unnecessarily. So the movements are very fixed and determined. And for example, if you're stomping, your head should not move up and down. One thing I love about No Theatre is that it really sort of puts me into a trance. Now, Hal Says No. What is Hal Says No? It's a special production inspired by Corda literature, which means string literature, which is very popular in the northeast of Brazil. And specifically, Hal Says No is inspired by José Pacheco's A Chegada de Lampião no Inferno, which means Lampião's arrival to hell. And so for those who are not familiar with the story, it's about this Brazilian gangster, kind of like a bandit who's also a poet and a doctor who actually existed in real life. His name is Lampião. But the storyline is about Lampião arriving to the gates of hell, and he has this discussion with Satan's assistant and demands entry into hell. And Satan, in response, says, absolutely not. You are not allowed entry into hell. And a battle ensues between Lampião and Satan's devils. And at the end, Lampião ends up destroying hell. So that is the storyline. And this story really spoke to me because in No Theatre, there are many stories of the protagonist being dead from the very beginning, the protagonist being a ghost wandering through the afterlife. So I saw this immediate connection between No Theatre and José Pacheco's A Chegada de Lampião no Inferno. Now, how did this story come about? How did this collaboration take place? I have a very dear friend. His name is Tulio Andrade, who's the head of the cultural sector at the Brazilian Embassy of Japan. And we were having a conversation about Corda literature. I was not familiar with Corda literature, but he was explaining to me that this literature was officially recognized as Brazil's national cultural heritage in 2018. And so there's this buzz and momentum around promoting Corda literature. And then we started speaking and saying, okay, how could we do something? Could we collaborate and do something with No Theatre and Corda literature? And so that's how the idea was born. And then Tulio Andrade, he took this proposal to the Brazilian government. And not only was the Brazilian government receptive to the idea, but they ended up funding, giving financial backing to this project, which really propelled this project forward. And I would say that the stars were aligned because the timing of this project was great, where a lot of people were celebrating the Olympics, traveling from Brazil to Japan. And so we leveraged this momentum and buzz around the Olympics. I took this proposal to Panasonic and explained that on one stage we'll have both Brazilian and Japanese cultural expressions to promote and celebrate the Olympics coming from Brazil to Japan. As you may know, Panasonic is a top sponsor of the Olympics, and they were very excited about the idea, and they were also very excited about seeing traditional Japanese arts juxtaposed with cutting-edge technology such as projection mapping. So that also propelled the project forward. And I would say that one key factor that shaped this project is really my love for Brazilian culture. I spent time in Rio de Janeiro making a documentary in 2006. I have a special love for the music, the language. I did some capoeira, the martial arts of Brazil. And I also love, the music such as forró. So if you notice in the play, there's a forró piece, which is a song that's, prevalent in the northeast of Brazil. So I hope that when you watch the play, the love and the respect for Brazilian culture comes through. Now, there's some key elements of Hal Says No. It's really a play where on one stage there's both Brazilian and Japanese cultural expressions that complement each other. I would say, when I was thinking about Lampião, I was thinking of, my father being, the perfect person to act out Lampião, wearing the warrior mask and being quite fierce as a character. Also, another key element in the play is the contrast of different languages. So my father chants 14th century Japanese. In No Theatre, the chanting, when people are chanting, the No Theatre actors are chanting, it's usually in 14th century Japanese. And Satan's assistant speaks colloquial Japanese. So there's this contrast of colloquial and ancient Japanese. On one stage, we have both the Brazilian martial arts capoeira and karate on one stage. And the music is one key element of this play. Batucada, samba, reggae, forró. I think in countries like Japan, we're quite familiar with traditional samba and bossa nova. But it was a real pleasure for me to introduce other types of music expressions that exist in Brazil. And I think one thing that was very important for me and my father was to portray the love between Lampião and Maria Bonita. And so this is not actually included in the original text, but we were very struck by the love between Lampião and Maria Bonita, which exists in all sorts of, literary forms. And one way we wanted to convey this love was through the music and the way Lampião was looking for Maria Bonita. And there's a cube that descends upon Lampião, and when the cube basically rises, Lampião transforms into Maria Bonita. But what's implied is that they never cross path, and they're searching for each other. So I'd like to end my presentation here and really just emphasize that I couldn't have done this without the dream team that we had. I had an incredible team with extremely talented people, and that's the only reason why we managed to produce such a magical show.
Okay. Soraya, thank you. As a new artist with such an important background, Soraya, we are lucky that Brazil culture is in your heart. So
it is. It's very much in my heart.
Great. So now I'd like to ask a question to Umewaka Sensei. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Umewaka Sensei, for your wonderful performance as Lampião and Maria Bonita. I'm sure the Brazilians were very moved and excited to see it. Thank you.
I'm flattered. Thank you so much.
So, well, the first time Brazil saw your work was in 1997 at the Ipiranga National Park, where you performed in São Paulo, the Yashima, it's a warrior no play. I was amongst the audience, and that was a Japan Foundation and a SESC production. And I remember the very magical atmosphere of Takigino, which is the No Theatre illuminated by the fire torches. It was a very cold evening, and how mysterious it was to feel the elegant spirit of that warrior through your powerful performance. So my question to you is about the Brazilian warrior, Lampião. Lampião is a very strong figure in the minds of Brazilians, and there are many different interpretations of his character. For us, he's a fascinating and also controversial hero, or an anti-hero. He is also a justice maker, a barbarian, an artist, a killer, a mythological entity, a demon, a poet, a warrior fighting for freedom, a passionate lover, and so many other interpretations. So, Umewaka Sensei, what is your interpretation of Lampião's essence? And how did that help you construct your own Lampião? And just to finish, is there a relationship between Lampião and traditional No warriors?
Yes, thank you. As you noted, the Lampions, the character is so complicated, and it was very difficult for me to internalize, make it into this role. So I felt I was supposed to feel his vast emotions, like you mentioned, warriors and etc. So I had to, in a way, metaphorically, I tried to compress these feelings and put that feeling into the mold of the Japanese No theater, the form, as a form of the Japanese No theater. But I was afraid the Lampions' emotion is so vast and strong. So I was hoping that it wouldn't overflow out of the form of the No theater. The one thing I had to be careful, I tried to be careful, was not to show his violence and strength. But the other side, which is, I shouldn't say feminine, but delicate part, his sad part, feeling of his sadness, had to be portrayed simultaneously so that the other character, the powerful strength, violence, that will be more enlightened for the audience. But what I tried, but of course this is all depends upon how the audience watch the character. Thank you. I don't know if I'm making self clear enough.
Very much. Thank you so much, Umewaka Sensei. Yes, I'm sure we were all thrilled by your performance. And personally, I was like, when you chant his name, Lampião Ari, that was very impressive because it was a different entity and so different and at the same time human.
Yes.
So bringing our humanity also.
Yeah, that the singing also, but actually to create Lampion's character, I was fortunate to have an access to this YouTube, which showed me the actual footage of black and white, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Lampion and Maria Bonita's image without sound, actually. So as I watched that video footage, the actual footage, what would his voice be, Lampion himself? But as I mentioned earlier, I decided to execute his voice in a more delicate, very delicate way, not only strong. I wouldn't say feminine, but a very delicate way so that the whole thing becomes deeper. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you agree with this.
Yes, I do. I think maybe you're trying to talk about the Yugen, that very beauty quality, deep quality of No theater.
Yes, maybe you can explain what the Yugen is.
Yeah, it's a very, very deep and almost mystical feeling of beauty. And it has to do with a sense of spiritual illumination. Is that right?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay. So thank you very much, Umewaka Sensei. I think Natasha has a question for both of you now. Natasha?
Thank you, Angela. Not really a question, a proper question, but more of asking you to share with us and the audience an aspect that we have been following and admiring in Japan, which is this beautiful and harmonic combination of tradition and innovation. And here we stand before a play that has concretizes this very well. And also, we cannot help but noticing that you come from a long line of Noh theater family, and how this love is transmitted from one generation to another, how you engage new generations in such a tradition manifestation, and how you manage to subvert it in a contemporary way that's more Soraya's play, and have your father at the same time in the same play. So it's such a beautiful play in all senses. So my question is more actually for you to share some experiences and personal feelings about this.
Sure. I think I can go first. So, I've been watching my father produce innovative Noh plays, ever since I was a child. We've seen great plays inspired by Shakespeare, when my father basically directed and produced this play, this innovative play inspired by Lear, King Lear. And I had the chance to take part in that production as the youngest daughter of King Lear. And so when I've been watching and admiring the way my father produces innovative Noh plays. And when I took this proposal of Hal Says No to my father, I initially asked my father whether he would be interested in directing this play, because he has been directing modern plays for many years. And his response was, maybe it'll be best for you to direct this time, and I'll support you. So that was a real privilege for me to be able to direct this theatre production for the first time with the support of my father. And I would say, this lineage, right, that 600 years of Noh theatre has been transmitted from father to son in my father's family. And so I feel this mission. I do feel a mission to convey the richness and the beauty of Noh theatre to Japan, like audiences in Japan, as well as the global audience. And I think my mother as well has done a great job taking some of the productions, the theatre productions, to different countries around the world. So I've been observing both my father, direct and produce, innovative Noh plays, and I've also seen my mother take the plays abroad. So that was great reference for me when I was putting together this production. And I guess when I was thinking about how to produce this modern play, I really just listened to my father's insights, as well as all the insights that came from the cast and crew. And it was a very iterative process. So lots of experimentation went into this theatre production. And with trial and error, we sort of refined the expressions. And I think I had the ability to listen to everyone's thoughts and opinions of how all these different elements would come together, like the martial arts, the music, the traditional Noh theatre element, as well as modern technology such as projection mapping.
Yes. As for me, the reason that I suggested Soraya to direct a play, I personally believe, just give you an example, I think the logistics that one painter, oil painter, has is compatible in producing the full production of theater. It's compatible and it's contributed greatly. I don't know why. It's such a very simple one dimension actually, and is it 2 dimension? One, yeah, 1 dimension. A plane. That logistic is compatible to produce, and this holds true, I believe, also for film directors. I think they are absolutely capable, and their logistic is absolutely capable in producing the whole, full production theater and direct, actually. Maybe some of the viewers of this event today or tonight can give me opinion. What about vice versa? The theater director, can their logistic can apply to draw a wonderful painting? I don't know about this, but the other way around, I know, I believe in this. So I thought Soraya would, and of course, she is my daughter, but I did not, I was very quiet. I didn't interfere, I hope, into your production.
I'm not so sure about that. I mean, I would say that there was this, I really valued, just all the insights from my father, but my father really challenged me and questioned a lot of the decisions that I was making. And I think that came from a very good place. So he had the best intention, but because he was a huge critic and was very critical of a lot of my decisions, I think the end result was good because it forced me to, rethink some of my decisions, and it forced me to, basically refine my ideas. So, yes, my father is my great supporter, as well as the biggest critic as well.
I think the danger that I was expecting, that this thing, this father and daughter will be shouldn't appear to be flowery, and it's very peaceful, mutually understanding. So I tried to be critical, but I hope I was sensible, and you are more logical. So maybe I surrendered, I suppose.
I have to say that I'm also quite stubborn, and so I did challenge some of the ideas that my father shared, and there was this back and forth, and it wasn't easy at all. But I think the end result was beautiful. So really, really appreciate that he had faith in me and that he trusted that I could produce and direct this magical performance.
Okay, so beautiful to hear about this beautiful relationship. And now we know where this remarkable freedom to create comes from. And so, Soraya, you made us travel between tradition, pop art, humor, visual poetry, technology, all with consistency and refreshing spirit. So, No, in Lampião no Inferno, is absolutely present in Umewaka Sensei's mastery. What I would like to ask you is, what other original No elements and its connections do you consider essential to qualify a play as a contemporary no?
Yes. I have been watching, my father produce all these innovative plays, and so that was a great reference for me to begin with. When I was piecing together this production, I think I had in mind, does this production put people in a trance? Will they be mesmerized by all these elements coming together? So that was something that I really focused on. When putting together a modern play, I think one thing that's very different from traditional no theater plays is that the choreography is not fixed. So in traditional no theater plays, everything is predetermined. The music, the movement, whether you turn right or left, whether your left foot goes first or your right foot goes first. So all these details are already captured in the choreography material. But in the case of a modern no production, there's a lot more creative artistic freedom. But having said that, I wanted to preserve the integrity of no theater, meaning I wanted to ensure that the expressions, the movements are very minimalist in nature. And there are some scenes, for example, during the battle scene, where my father stomps, and just from stomping, he ends up killing Satan's devil. He ends up killing the capoeirista, the karate, the champion. And so I feel like having those minimalist gestures can sometimes make the movements even more powerful. So the scene when not Lampion, but Maria Bonita speaks about winter coming early in hell, and there's snow that appears, and there are all these feathers that rise, fill the space. My father is very still, and there's silence as well. So I would say this minimalist movement, just also minimalist music as well. I think I ended up collaborating with a musician, Masataka Odaka, and I really emphasized to this musician that silence is a very important element of this production. So I would say, yes, this combination of the minimalist movement, minimalist sound, even minimalist dialogue. I wanted to keep the dialogue to a minimum so that people can focus on the body language, which is really, and the dance of the performance, which is a universal language. I guess the other element of no theater that you can see is the bridgeway. So in no theater plays, in no theater itself, there's always a bridgeway. So when we were constructing and designing the stage, we ensure that there is this bridgeway to the main stage. But I think, just going back to my previous point, one thing that I always kept in mind is, do all these elements, of Brazilian and Japanese artistic expressions complement each other while preserving the minimalist and simple nature, simple nature of no theater.
Okay, thank you for sharing all these interesting and relevant points, Soraya. So, Umewaka Sensei, would you like to talk about that too? What else do you consider essential to a contemporary no play?
Well, it's a difficult question, but if I may give you an example, but what I liked about this scene, the last scene, for instance, the last scene of the Mania Bonita, the original text or the original Cordero literature said, that's my favorite line, says in hell, the winter comes pretty early or something like this. And it's infernal, the burning hell. And this whole thing is just a satire and so humorous, this poetry. Because, the Lampion wants to set a fire in hell, which is burning already. That itself is an amazing satire and humor, isn't it? But anyway, the last scene when the winter comes early in hell, I think I like Soraya's artistic direction, which is to utilize the bird feather as snow, and also her idea to use the stage assistant to bring the electric fan on stage to be unseen by the audience, the electric fan itself. And the stage assistants were putting the feather in this box onto the electric fan, so that the whole because of this wind produced by the electric fan was floating around up in the air. So her choice to shows not only the effect, what is happening, what of this the feather thing, to show it to the audience was, I think, very interesting idea. Sorry, I don't know if I'm making it myself clear. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That's my comment.
yes, very clear. Like to expose hidden procedures is very,
Yes, hidden procedure.
yeah,
Exactly. Hidden procedure, showing the trick of a magic,
yes,
but the has to be shown on stage. So together, simultaneously, in parallel. I think I like that idea.
mhm.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Yes, so let's continue talking about a little bit more about those procedures and how they enrich this concept of a contemporary no. So I would like to go back a little bit to the scene of the that structure where Lampião gets inside and transforms into Maria Bonita. So that beautiful scene. And that object, it reminded me the bell of another no play called Dojoji. If it's important to bring this reference, please feel free to talk about that, Umewaka-san. But the point here is that that scene reminded me.
I think we used. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, please.
Please. Yes.
Yes. As you pointed out, the cylinder prop.
Yeah.
That we used, we borrowed the idea from the dojo temple, from a traditional no theater piece, and but we utilize it in a different way. For instance, the cloth, where the covered in the traditional piece. To be the bell, the dojo temple. That the whole cylinder is supposed to be the bell in the traditional piece, and it's always covered by at all time by cloth. But this time so people can see what's happening inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
Very incredible. And then, so this is a reinvention of another no element. So going back to that moment, which I think is the turning point of the play, when Lampião, like Orfeu looking for Eurídice, or Izanagi chasing for Izanami in hell, the moment they meet, they become one again because of their great love. And then Maria Bonita dances all her feelings. And at the very end of the play, when she's going out through the bridge, Hashigakari, there's another moment of exposure of another secret or hidden procedure, which she gives the stage assistant her fan. And I was thinking, why she did that? And to me, it's like a equivalent gesture of Lampião when he gives up his swords. He throws the swords on the floor. And then Maria Bonita, as in No, the fan is used as a symbolic object. So it may also symbolize a weapon. So this moment she gives this fan to the stage assistant and leaves hell. That was so beautiful. And this is my own interpretation. And so like, as if they were leaving Ashura, they were leaving the Buddhist hell of eternal war. So please, Umewaka Sensei, could you tell us about this beautiful transition from Lampião to Maria Bonita inside the structure, the cylinder, and all the emotions you channeled into Maria Bonita's dance? And I would like now, as we're coming towards the end, to ask you about the use of the masks in that transition, please.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the video footage of the actual video footage of Lampião and Maria Bonita, from that image, Maria Bonita was smiling and looked quite happy. But at one instant, her face turns into very sad and anxious. And maybe shortly after, they were both executed, I suppose. So why don't we, Soraya and I, portray Maria Bonita as very angry character? But again, the anger. Sorry, I'm not talking about the transition. Transition maybe it depends upon your interpretation, but I'm talking about
That's okay.
how to create Maria Bonita's character is not on. She let her be angry, strong, strength, her maybe to some point violent, but maybe I personally wanted her to be woman, very much woman. So there's a scene that she adjusts her flower on her head, on top of it, twice with her left hand. When she starts to adjust this flower on stage in the middle, in the center stage, when she lowers the left hand, that's the moment she realizes that she still exists and she's still a woman at that point. So that was my interpretation. We told, Soraya and I told the musicians that at that instant, she realized she's a woman and not only angry. And the last thing you talked about, where the Maria Bonita passes her fan to the stage assistant. Thank you for that interpretation. That's a wonderful interpretation.
Thank you.
But I didn't intend that, but that's maybe even better. Because the stage assistant usually receives the main character that way, behind the curtain. So that scene is never seen by the audience. But Soraya and I decided that let the audience see what's happening behind the curtain when everything is over. And that's it. But thank you for your interpretation. But you noticed a small detail. Thank you for noticing the small details, because even the first half, the Lampion threw away 2 swords, remember, in order to get into the hell. So he had to throw 2 swords away in order to get into the hell. Thank you for noticing that small detail.
Well, thank you for performing it to us. It's very rich, many layers of significance. So let's talk a little bit now, please. Let's move the subject to the music. So Soraya, Brazilian art students are very much interested in Johakyu concept in No. So in very simple lines, Johakyu is specific time and space, also space progression, like how to deal with energy. You hold and the energy, and then everything is slow. So suddenly you break this energy, and then it develops. So each word, movement, rhythm, chant, declamation, and the story itself should begin slowly, and then speed up and end abruptly. So could you talk about Johakyu, which is a very important concept to define no theater, relating to your choice of music and to the percussion rhythms selection, please?
Yeah, sure. I would say that, as I mentioned before, silence is an essential element of this production. And I really wanted to preserve that silence and make it carry weight. And so there's this interplay of sound, minimalist sounds, and silence throughout the play. In the play itself, we had a musician, Masataka Odaka, who produced the minimalist notes in real time, on the spot, watching closely what's happening on stage. So just to give you an example, when you hear Satan speak, that's actually the musician Masataka Odaka breathing into a microphone and having that sound manipulated to make it sound a little bit menacing. So again, it was just his breath that produced Satan's angry voice, which is again an example of a minimalist element. And I would say, yes, there is this progression of the music, and where you notice the change in pace of the music, especially when you start to hear the Brazilian percussion, during Maria Bonita's dance, and even during the battle scene. But I would say, there's the Brazilian percussion that features samba reggae, and there's also forró, which you can hear just when Lampião is transforming into Maria Bonita. And I chose to feature Nosso Shot, which is this lovely piece produced by this band called Bicho de Pé. And I asked the musicians, Nero Niwa and Ronaldo Fonseca, to really slow down the forró piece. And so that way we could feel the emotions of Lampião and his yearning towards Maria Bonita, because before he transforms into Maria Bonita, he asks the band, please play our favorite song. And so there's this natural, I guess, acceleration of music, and then it ends abruptly after Maria Bonita dances. And then there's that snow scene. And during the snow scene, there's silence, but there's also just, I think, one or two notes that's produced throughout, where Maria Bonita is exiting, the stage. She walks onto the bridgeway, but really it's just one or two very simple notes that you hear. So it feels like this abrupt ending. So I think that's what I ended up doing. And again, this was a very collaborative process. And so I really listened to the musicians' opinions. And, Bloco Barravento, they were the ones that produced the Brazilian percussion. And they produced like original music for this production. And I'm very grateful to all the musicians that were involved in this production. And I guess one last thing I'd say is that my father's chanting is also a key aspect of the music composition of this production. So it may not sound like music, but the chanting for me is music.
Yes, Umewaka-sensei?
The concept of Johakyu, how do you translate that in Portuguese? The beginning, and interlude and finality or something. What is the translate? How do you translate it?
Yes, the literal translate would be the beginning, the break, and the speed. There, you know, it's a very sensitive discussion.
Yes,
because it does not have to do only with time.
Yes, I know. As you noted, the Zeami was a great believer of Jo Ha-kyu, and he tried to give examples. He even extended the wider interpretation, a narrower interpretation. Narrower interpretation, he says, as you know, he said, if you're a writer, script writer, within one line, there should be Jo Ha-kyu. One sentence, there should be Jo Ha-kyu. And he said, what about one paragraph? In one paragraph, in No, should be a Jo Ha-kyu, beginning and breaking and the finality. And the whole structure itself, No theater, should be composed of according to the principle of Jo Ha-kyu. And we use, as an actors, we still use the term Jo Ha-kyu when you move your feet, the sliding the feet, hakobi, it should be Jo Ha-kyu. And so the principle of Jo Ha-kyu used extensively, widely. So definition becomes more, you know, it's why it's not clear. But how about this one? Even in the film, one of my favorite film director is David Lynch. It's a very abstract film. There's even no story. There's no story. There's no even. He says there's not even a theme. He doesn't want to talk about that theme. About his, but he couldn't deny. He says, his whole structure, film structure, is composed of 3: Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. It's the form. So even David Lynch cannot deny Jo Ha-kyu, maybe. What do you say?
Yes, well, it's a natural structure. So it's so wise how No theater uses this natural phenomenon.
Yes.
And I would talk about that for days. It's a very beautiful, interesting concept for humanity, for a life, because it comes from nature to the art. So thank you very much, Umeoka Sensei. So I think before we answer the audience's questions, so could you Soraya and Umeoka Sensei, tell us a little bit about the element of humor in Lampião no Inferno, considering that No theater is so solemn, but we just loved it. That was very warm, and I believe Brazilians, you know, the Satan assistant, he was so interesting too. So could you please talk a little about the humor in Hell Says No?
Yeah, sure. So when I was reading the script, you know, I had help from Tulio Andrade, as well as an expert in caudal literature, Braulio Tavares, helped me understand the subtle nuances of caudal literature and specifically this play by Jose Pacheco. And I think there were some key elements that really kind of emphasize the humor within the play. So one example would be during the battle scene, we have Satan's assistant, or even Satan himself, tell his devils to use even spoons and kitchen utensils to fight against Lampião because they ran out of weapons. So imagine, you know, a hell that runs out of weapons, and then even when Satan is, you know, responding to Satan's assistant, when Satan's assistant is asking Satan, "Shall we let Lampião into hell?" His response one of his responses is, I will not seek problems the way a dog seeks scabies. And, it's very humorous. And I think we really wanted to preserve that humor within the play.
Great. Umewaka Sensei.
Yes. In the Kodaira literature, the original says, like Soraya just mentioned, use even spoon and knife and fork, kitchen utensil to fight against Lampion. That's Satan's order to Satan's assistant. So I think Soraya and I decided to use, instead of spoon and knife, with the food processor. So use food processor for Lampion and make him into a minced meat.
Oh.
So that was our interpretation of Kodaira literature, his message. And
Okay.
yes.
Quite Kyogen spirit. So thank you very much, Soraya Umewaka Sensei. I think now in the final 15 minutes, we could go for the audience questions. Natasha, please.
Well, we have been having so many comments during this talk, which is wonderful, and also people from Recife, which is one of the lands of Cordel. So this is great that we have been reaching such a broad audience. I wanted to thank you very much for this conversation. There are many questions from the public. Angela, do you want to choose any of those, or should I?
Please a few seconds to take a look here.
Well, I can start with one that was one of the last ones, and then I'll let you choose another one.
Okay.
So mine is from Eric Klug, which is the president of Japan House São Paulo. Do you see any connection between No and Brazil's Northeastern traditions?
I'll let my father answer that one.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question, please? I'm sorry. The microphone. Yes.
Of course. So, do you see any connection between No and Brazil's northernest traditions?
Can I interpret that as specific like Kodaira literature? If I can,
if you want, yes.
Yes, included. I don't know. Maybe Soraya, you can answer this question.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think when we were looking at Kodaira literature specifically, I think that the chanting element or the singing element is very important, and that is the same in No theater. And I found the Kodaira literature to be very poetic in nature, and it's the same with No theater. The No storyline and the element of storytelling is very poetic as well. So I see this immediate connection. Plus, the protagonist already being dead, and No theater storylines, often having storylines about people wandering through the afterlife. So this connection was very strong, and so that's another reason why I kind of fell in love with Kodaira literature, and really found a new appreciation for it when producing this production.
If I may add, I like this Kodaira literatures. The authors, he's not so much interested in the chronological, logical order of the paragraph, sentence, and lines, because Lampion is already dead when he appears in that poetry. But at the end, he goes on to say, the author I'm talking about, he's probably still alive somewhere in the village or something. So all this he's very indifferent. He's not interested in the chronological. This often happens in no theater too, but not in that overt way. He's still alive. In no theater, if you're dead, you're still dead. But so that was a little interesting connection for me. These two literary works.
I was also thinking about the poetry and the rhythm of the words in Portuguese, and also the rhythm, considering the silence that Soraya mentioned so many times. It's also a kind of rhythm. So I was thinking also about this connection that can be seen between the two of them.
It's also very interesting trial to put Cordero literature on stage. If I may repeat, the last thing, maybe he's still alive. Lampion is still alive. How do you put that on stage? Just narration is not interesting. So that has to be shown by the performer. How would you do that? So this Cordero literature, enormous possibility that I felt.
Okay, so it's great because we had 3 questions here and you have answered already 2. So one of them, Rafael Ednica asked, how was the process of adapting Cordel literature for the No Theater? And Fernando Hiroshi Maeda asked, Umewaka, when did you have your first contact with Cordel literature? Of course, he has other questions, but I don't know if we have time. And Fernanda Araujo asked, what is the relationship of Umewaka Sensei to Brazilian music?
Can I am the great lover, admirer of Brazilian music. I only listen to Brazilian music nowadays. Yes, I have maybe my whole collection.
Wow.
Brazilian music, more than classical music. But I have my father's CDs, my late father, which I seldom listen because he is within me already. Do you know what I mean? If I may say so. But Brazilian music, I have been great fan of Brazilian for my university time.
Mm-hmm.
I actually grew up listening to Brazilian music because my father loved Brazilian music, and I was moved from a young age, and so I really appreciate that I had that exposure.
At home, in my car,
correct,
all over the
correct.
That's wonderful. Oh, okay. So Natasha, anything, any other point you'd like to?
I think that we have been able to cover a lot in this conversation, and like Angela mentioned, it could last much longer. It was such a pleasure to have this talk and this conversation. Such an amazing opportunity to talk to you, but also to watch the play here in Brazil through the channels of Japan House São Paulo. So I really wanted to thank you all for sharing with us this opportunity. I also wanted to ask the audience that is still watching us to please reply to the questions we are asking in the chat, which is something we always do at the end of our presentations. And finally, thank you again, and wishing you all a good evening and a good day in Japan and here in Brazil, and hoping to be with you very soon.
Yeah, so Soraya, Umewaka Sensei, thank you so much for sharing your experience with all of us today. Yeah, it was very enriching to all of us. And I want to thank you and all the artists of Hell Says No for this marvelous gift to Brazilian people. Thank you, Natasha, Carol, and the technical team. Thanks to the audience And we hope that Elsa Snow, Lampião no Inferno, be presented soon here in Brazil.
I hope so too. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Natasha?